America and democracy. There is no America. There is no democracy. We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies. The world is a college of corporations, inexorably determined by the immutable bylaws of business. The world is a business. And I have chosen you to preach this evangel.
For all my free market healthcare robbing, stock stealing, retirement fund fucking with niggas. Fuck you little credit card scamming, jewelry stealing, crack selling, liquor store robbing motherfuckers. Shout to the homies, Carnegie, OG, Willie Randolph Hearst, Baruch, Rockefeller, the real Rockefeller, my main bitch Leona, pour out a little Louis XIII, Scott Rothstein, Jack Abramoff, hold your head, my Rothschild niggas, let's get this money. I spend my day peppering America overseas, pension for the workers, nigga please, embezzlement, etiquette, private settlement, I'm better with Confederate rhetoric from my mansion in Connecticut, foreclose if it close out the tenement, I twist words like a speech impediment, I hope you got good credit bitch, if not better get a new job with benefits, while I play golf with niggas and get cheddar with, new money buys brand new carrots, my old money bunch of great grandparents, you got grills in your mouth, I ain't mad at ya, I own every gold mine in South Africa, thanks baby you made me $1 billion, plus I own a building for each one of my children's children.
And we are live. Welcome to Voice of Rebellion Radio. Today is March 19th, 2017. This is your host, Chris J, here at the one and only UCY.TV. And if you're listening from any other platform besides UCY.TV, we also thank you for tuning in to Voice of Rebellion Radio. Tonight on Sunday nights at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, as usual. Right now, we have a few things to talk about. So we continue our tribute to the late Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez tonight, part 3. But we also will be talking about incorporating a little bit into some more current events. Marine Le Pen's run in France that's caught a lot of people's attentions, and right now the polls actually have her in. There's a lot of speculation that she could actually win the race. A poll outsider candidate, as it was seen before, has now brought her way up to what appears to be the top of the race in France. On top of that, we have in Europe, we've had a few other events with Geert Wilders this week lost his election, which would more represent what I would say is the faux nationalists of Europe, which are these, this guy seems to be more of just an opportunist that's taken on the anger of the Europeans there with the current situation in the EU or whatnot to suggest radical moves against really a whole ethnicity, or maybe not a whole ethnicity, but a whole religion, and of Islam. Talk about banning Islam, banning the Quran. And really what it echoes is just an extreme version of Trump's faux nationalism that's been invoked here in the United States. And, as we see Trump's, one of his selling points to the anti-establishment voters was that he would improve relations with Russia. And now we see within 2 months into his election, into his presidency, we already see that falling apart. And right before our eyes, we're seeing Trump pushing for the same establishment policies as his predecessor and his predecessor, which is that of more war against Russia's allies, and really it's an agitation towards Russia. And when it comes to the foreign policy, Trump was expected to have a bit different foreign policy than some of his the predecessor presidents. According to people that were naive enough to believe that there would be a significant change just because there was a new president. Similar to, the effect of what happened with Obama. People thought there would be a significant change in the foreign policy with Obama. And, there was even people going as far as to say that maybe our policy towards Israel would change. And there was those people that speculated in 2008 that would happen. There was those people that speculated in 2016. But what we're seeing is a very strongly pro-Israel president, just like Barack Obama. and somebody that will push the Israeli agenda in the Middle East, which is destabilization, regime change, coups, and anything possible to expand on the greater Israel project, which is that Israel, as its plans, as the Zionist founders do, created the country. They wanted to make a country that goes from the Nile to the Euphrates River, which is Euphrates in Syria, I believe, and to the Nile River, of course, in Egypt. So, that would include Egypt taking the Sinai, Israel taking the Sinai, parts of the rest of main Egypt, I believe, and a lot of Syria. I think all the way into Iraq. It would be a gigantic country, and the expansion that would be involved in that. But when you see ISIS and what they're doing in Iraq and Syria, and when you see that they are fighting against the Assad government that's anti-Zionist, and that they're one of their biggest opponents is Iran, which Israel has even said that they rather have ISIS than Iran, is that you start to see that the obviously fingerprints are there that ISIS is an Israeli, United States Western creation in order to, and for multiple purposes in the Middle East. But one of them is to work on the greater Israel project. And Trump has no objections to Israel's policy in the Middle East, and he will continue to support probably Israel's meddling in Syria and meddling in other Middle Eastern countries. The problem of Zionism is that it's not just, or a problem about Zionism, it's not just in Palestine that people are affected. It's all across the Middle East, and it's all across the world. People are affected by the cancerous ideology of Zionism. That's the unfortunate reality that we live in. But it's the truth. And Israel has, they seem to have their fingers in all the pies. You have, for example, even like here, there was one Skyway Communications or something like that here in Clearwater, one of the biggest Mossad operations inside the United States was right here in Clearwater, Florida. Apparently, they had subcontracted out via a company, a Skyway Communications, that was full of Mossad people or whatnot, and I think they were like ex-Mossad veterans, and they had a deal with Verizon or something like that, and they wiretapped a lot of the phones. So pretty much they did a lot of the NSA work, and the NSA, you see it's a little more complex than just the United States government spying on American people. It's also the Israeli government spying on the American people, and you really start to see the intertwined nature that the Israeli government and the United States government have. And people think that there could be this separation without the United States government falling with Israel. You have to realize that there's no possible way that any president could, in the current system, change the relationship that the United States has with Israel, because it is one that is so complex, how strongly tied they are together, the United States government and the Zionist government. And it goes to the point where you have all these dual Israeli citizens inside the United States government. You have like 15 senators are dual Israeli citizens. Even Bernie Sanders is a dual Israeli citizen, or at least a lot of evidence points to it. And you also have the representatives that are dual Israelis, dual Israeli citizens. And, some countries don't even allow this kind of nature to exist, where people are allowed to be dual Israeli citizens. And, and then we have in this country, a lot of these dual Israeli citizens the holds in the highest offices in the nation. It's absurd that it's allowed, but that's what happens. And that's what people don't want to wake up to the fact. That's how it is. That's how that's how our system is set up as of now. And people really don't know because anytime they hear any kind of criticism towards Israel, they automatically reject it as anti-Jewish propaganda. That this is something that a Nazi would say or whatnot. And You know, one of my favorite quotes is that Jews are used as human shields by Israel. You know, because one of Israel's biggest arguments is how the Palestinian fighters use the Palestinian people or whatever as human shields, and that's why there's so many civilian casualties. It's one of their excuses. Even though they target civilians, and it's obvious that it's indiscriminate. They have no. It's not like they're trying to not hit civilians, and they do hit civilians as part of their terror campaign against the Palestinians. But you know, ideologically, is that a lot of the hate against Jews around the world is an unfortunate result of the Zionist ideology in Israel and political Zionism around the world. Is that unfortunately people, you know, they don't see the difference between Judaism and Zionism, and there's a lot of Jewish people that oppose Zionism, but there's a lot of people, because of Zionism, it has festered their extreme repulsion with the ideology, and that they associate it as, you know, they believe Zionism represents Jews as a whole. They hate Jews because of that, you know, and that's the thing, is that Zionism is committing all these terrible acts in the name of Judaism, and so some people, they associate all these terrible acts with Judaism, but it's the you know, Zionism is quite different than, you know, the original Judaism. Of course, the Talmudic Judaism, which is what what Zionism is based off of, much different than the Torah, and it's a totally different animal, is what is one way to describe it, compared to you know, Torah pretty much just preaches, you know, peace and, you know, pushing, you know, pretty much peace and, you know, working with others or whatever, you know, just pretty much the same stuff as the other Old Testament books. But the Talmudic Zionism, when it comes to what it pushes towards, you know, that's what I'm saying, when it pushes, besides the, you know, religious aspect, or the aspects about deities and whatnot, what, you know, moral lessons does it teach? Well, you know, what Talmud says, that pretty much that if you're Jewish, you're superior to everyone else, and that anyone that's non-Jewish is pretty much just there to serve you and is beneath you. And that's what the Talmud says. And that's, you know, if people want to say that what I'm saying is anti-Semitic, they can go ahead and say that. But Talmud is, from what I've seen, is one of the most vile, despicable books in the history of mankind. I mean, it's right up there with a Mein Kampf, or it's also of that nature. And, you know, the Mein Kampf did that with the, or, you know, in the Nazi propaganda was the other side of the coin. You know, was to, you know, spread hate towards Jews and say that German people were superior. And really, it was two sides of the same coin, because Zionism and Nazism worked together in the example of the Havar Agreement, where Nazi Germany and the Zionist Federation of Germany signed an agreement agreeing to send Jews to Palestine in order to conquer it, in order for some kind of fee or whatnot, so the richer Jews would be able to escape Germany, while a lot of the poor Jews became sacrifice pieces, is probably one way of looking at it. You realize what kind of political aspects the Holocaust had toward pushing the Zionist state, is that because the Holocaust is the reason why they say because the Holocaust happened is why they deserved the land of Palestine to turn into Israel. And, you know, of course, I could get into a long rant about, you know, or, you know, a long spiel about the whole history of Israel, Zionism, or whatnot, but it seems it's always relevant to what's going on, because, you know, again, you look at the roots of all this malignant things that are happening in the world, what all these horrible things. And it goes back. You look back at the, you know, Rothschilds. Rothschilds are the ones that ways, were the architects of the state of Israel. Jacob Rothschild, or not Jacob Rothschild, one of the Rothschilds was the builder of the Knesset, our parliament building, and the Israeli Supreme Court is on Rothschild Boulevard. The fingerprints towards the Rothschilds, and Israel's almost made somewhat of a tribute to the Rothschilds, you could say, or you could say. But I would say that it's practically their creation, or it's them and their allies' creation. And the Rothschilds, this is they are politically Zionist. I would say political Zionism goes a little bit further than the Zionism that we see inside of Israel or whatever. It goes to these top families or whatnot, and some of these most powerful people. I guess they all seem to be pro-Israel. Israel seems to be is one of the big core pieces to the New World Order, and people understand that. I mean, sometimes even truthers can't grasp that Israel is modern state of Israel is at the heart of a lot of the. It's one of the most important pieces when understand the whole puzzle that is understand the New World Order. And by the way, if anybody wants to call in to today's show, it's going to be 718-717-8296, 718-717-8296 here at Voice of Rebellion Radio. Your host, Chris J. I'll be here to take any questions, listen to whatever comments. And also, if you have me on Skype, you can just shoot me a message or whatnot, and I can bring you on at some point. Tonight's show is going to be kind of just, going off on many different tangents throughout the show, as I usually do. But I think tonight will be especially that nature, because I'm kind of going between stuff about Hugo Chavez and then the current events or whatnot that I said I was going to talk about. Also to be talked about, I guess, is the tensions that we're seeing right now between North Korea and the United States. It's gotten probably to the tensest point, definitely in the last 4 years, since 2013 when we got to a very tense point. If you can remember, around April 2013, there was talk about, people actually were, people took it a little too far on the internet. We're going to, saying that we were going to be nuked at any moment or whatever, but it definitely was very tense, and we were probably pretty close to war at that point. What you have to remember is that North Korea and the United States never formally signed a truce, or never formally signed a treaty. They have a truce, and that's it, the armistice. And so technically, North Korea and the United States are still at a state of war. And if they were to start fighting, it would just be a break of the ceasefire. However, there's no treaty between the two countries. The armistice agreement is just a truce, which at one point during the 2013 tensions, North Korea said that the armistice was now over or whatever. But there's actually been a few points during the last 6 years where there's been active, little firefights or whatever. There was a little firefight that happened between the United States soldiers and North Korean soldiers in 1984. There's been a few incidents. There was the Axon incident in 1976. There's been little things that have happened at the DMZ over the years, but there hasn't been a major attack or whatnot between the United States and North Korean fighters during this armistice years. The armistice, in my opinion, I can't tell you whether it's going to hold up or not. Whether they'll ever go back to war with each other. I feel like eventually it could be broken, and there seems to be some serious talks. Rex Tillerson pretty much went over there to Korea and told them that their everything was done with them, or that he was done being patient with them. Talking on the behalf of the United States that we're done being patient with them, and pretty much telling them that they need to, I guess, disarm or whatever their nuclear weapons program. That it's been so overhyped. Is that this talk about that North Korea is going to be launching nukes at California tomorrow or whatever. They say that they have potentially nuclear weapons that can reach mainland United States at the West Coast. When really the most realistic thing that would probably happen, a kind of scenario between South Korea and North Korea ever fighting would be, I would see, as maybe the North Korea getting down the Seoul or whatnot. That's pretty close to the border. So I don't think that they would ever end up launching nukes at the United States. I really question if anybody would ever use nuclear weapons. I just don't think that North Korea would. And their nuclear weapons program is pretty primitive from most evidence. So I don't think that they would ever try to test anybody else with their nuclear weapons program that's minimal. It's just a deterrent, I think, so they don't end up like a Iraq scenario or whatnot. It's their that's what it is. It's the nuclear deterrent. Is that they'll prevent them from being invaded or whatnot from the United States, or have. It's also like have a civil war break out in their country, like in Syria or whatnot. There's also that really keeps the imperialists from meddling with their affairs, which I think is that nuclear deterrent. Anyways, moving on into the show. There's also it's been a surprising journey throughout the alternative media and realizing that that there's this massive debate between different people in alternative media about Hugo Chavez's legacy or whatnot. That you have right now. And I think that in some ways is that he's starting to get a little bit of a boost from when people realize that the current government, the Secretary of State that we have right now, Rex Tillerson, took on Hugo Chavez and lost, and that Hugo Chavez was able to take on the then CEO of ExxonMobil, which in that lawsuit, the nationalization payout that Venezuela was going to give Rex Tillerson was going to be $1 billion. Rex Tillerson brought them to an international court where he challenged that. He wanted $10 billion for the nationalization payout, which he never got. He only got $1.6 billion. So in the end, Hugo Chavez ended up winning that little battle for the battle between ExxonMobil and the Venezuelan government. Now he's 64 years old. He was with ExxonMobil for many, many years. He was a CEO from 2006 to 2016, Rex Tillerson. And he also in the past was president of the Exxon Yemen Incorporated. And Tillerson is also interesting because it's also one of the people that they use to try to push the idea of Russia hacked the election by saying that Tillerson has this very close relation between Russia and the United States, or between Russia and him. And one of the things that apparently he did win the Order of Friendship, kind of an eyebrow raising thing that he received, which is a medal inside of Russia that he received in 2013. Rex Tillerson, was, I guess, because he had these government connections with the with Russian businessmen or whatever. Is that apparently he's, Augusta said that he helped make friendlier relationships with Russia, but it seems to be not really a thing that necessarily means anything that of loyalty to Russia. For example, it seems to be more. It might be just some sort of diplomacy or whatnot. That was why he received the award. If you look at some of the people that won throughout the time, is that like for example, the former Prime Minister of Canada once won the Order of Friendship, which he was the one from 1993 to 2003. Jean Chrétien, he's still even alive. Still alive at it. It's was it really, that Russia, that also might have been actually at the time of the Yeltsin years too, when Yeltsin ruled the country. And of course, he might have helped one of his Western buddies, as he was an oligarch himself. Trying to look up the year when he won. That'd be interesting to see. Let's see. It was in 2014. So, like I said, it's more of a diplomacy thing more than anything. Tillerson, however, they really loved pushing that thing for the last months and a half. They really have loved doing that, pushing the idea that Russia and Trump administration have some kind of connection between each other. And Tillerson said he didn't when he talk about why he opposed the sanctions against Russia or whatever. I think that he saw it more along the lines that they should have done a muscular response. In 2016, Tillerson said that the United States should have deployed military units to the neighboring states next to Russia in a more muscular response. And Tillerson also said that Russia's annexation of the Crimea was illegal in 2017. He said this. He also compared China's controversial island building in the South China Sea to Russia's annexation of Crimea. And also noticing that, and it points that Tillerson's globalist ideas, the idea of the carbon tax, which is just really the carbon tax. What appears to be, how I see it, is a way of getting people paying, just a world entity taxes. Whether the United Nations or whoever administers the carbon tax, that's a step towards the New World Order, one world government. But he said that and then he reaffirmed this in October 2016, less than 2 months before his nomination as Secretary of State. He gave a speech in which he reaffirmed that ExxonMobil had long viewed a carbon tax to be the best policy of those being considered, replacing the hodgepodge of currently largely ineffective regulations with a revenue-neutral carbon tax to ensure a uniform and predictable cost of carbon across the country, allow market forces to drive solutions, maximize transparency. And he goes on pretty much different ways how a carbon tax would, I guess, improve the economy as it is, or whatever. That the carbon tax would help the economy, pretty much what Tillerson was saying. And also, Tillerson supports the TPP. So when I talk about Tillerson in this show, is because maybe one of the biggest enemies to Venezuela right now is Tillerson. He was before he even was officially before he was even confirmed as the Secretary of State. He's already talked about regime change in Venezuela. But Tillerson outlined the support for the TPP, stating at the Global Security Forum, one of the most promising developments on this front is the ongoing effort for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the 11 nations have been working to lower trade barriers and protectionist policies, and it goes on pretty much to support it. And Tillerson, and also here's some of Tillerson's contributions. This is money towards political campaigns. He contributed to the political campaigns of George W. Bush, Mitt Romney, 2012, and Mitch McConnell. And it says that he did not donate to Donald Trump's campaign. So there's the people that say, well, he only helped Trump and not the other establishment Republicans. That's the opposite. Even though that Trump is just another establishment politician, he donated to Jeb Bush's campaign also during the 2016 Republican primaries. So when it comes to where his money was going, it's just to all these establishment politicians' names or whatever. But people like to highlight these little, incidents and try to say that, oh well, Tillerson is different because of this one little thing here, but his money is history, and his words throughout the years have definitely shown something different than the supposed anti-establishment Secretary of State or somebody that is secretly working with Russia or whatever. But I think they're like to put fear into the people, and it's weird that they want to now. They used to say back in the days of the Red Scare that the communists were lurking, amongst the people or whatever. But now they're telling the people that the communists are lurking inside the government or whatever, the Russians, which at one times, like MSNBC is labeled Russia a communist state. So it's almost as pretty much the same thing as saying that the communists are loose, the communists are lurking behind the shadows, they're in the Trump presidency or whatever. Just now that the thing is now is that Russia is not officially a communist country anymore. Russia is now a democracy. They're no longer a one-party state. So, back then, to say that people, that's the thing is to make a connection between, it's just, to say somebody is working for Russia or whatever does not make them a communist. And with Russia and communism are not connected like they were back then. Anyways, is that the Soviet Union, a lot of times I don't really like saying, when I refer to, different things that the Soviet Union was involved in, and I don't like to say the Russians, like for example, that the Soviet Union, or say that the Russians invaded Hungary or whatever in 1956, when actually it was the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union kind of usurped the identity of all those multiple countries that were involved in, or that were part of it. 15 different republics or whatnot that were part of it. And, I have my own opinions about the Soviet Union or whatnot. I don't really think that. I think that what went down in the Soviet Union was I think that the bankers got to it at some point and controlled it for a while. The existence of the Soviet Union. You look at what happened. For example, Stalin was one of the quickest leaders, quote unquote leaders, to recognize the state of Israel. It was, he was second right after the United States. And, there's other things as well. For example, that the Soviet Union did not support a legitimate revolutionary such as Che Guevara, but instead, they were willing to meet with Nixon, but that, you could say it was diplomacy, of course. But in my opinion, again, we'll be going a little bit off track and start talking about that, and that's the same for a different show, and also talk about the roots of the Soviet Union, the Bolshevik Revolution or whatnot. Which the Bolshevik Revolution, there was definitely appeared to have been a Wall Street connection. That's one thing that people, they like to, it's like 100 years after the Bolshevik Revolution. Maybe that's the thing that we should be trying to put out. Is that that there was a real Russian connection between the United States and people over there in Russia or the communists over there. It was between Wall Street and different people, the Bolshevik movement. Uh, that was there appears to at least be evidence of that compared to the supposed Russia-Trump connection, where it doesn't seem to be the links. It doesn't even make sense. Why would they hack an election that's rigged in the first place? But again, that's the people that believe that Russia hacked the election, believe that the elections are legitimate. Unfortunately, are still trapped in the delusion that their vote counts. Unfortunately, that's really the only way to say it is that your vote doesn't count for the presidential election, and when it comes to the bigger races, like Senate and Congress, you also have to remember is that it seems that every congressman, every senator has to show his support for Israel, or else he becomes a pariah inside the media and everything. I mean, just look at Ron Paul and the way that the media treated him over the years. Is that Ron Paul? They pretty much, the media. If you look at the way they cover him, they pretty much covered him as a loon, as a extremist, and many other things, and did not, but the thing was is that he stood for what he saw was right, even when he stood alone, which was a lot of the time, because it seemed that every other one was the establishment, but Ron Paul wasn't one of the establishment. You have to wonder almost why they even allowed Ron Paul to make it. Was it because they just put that one person there to, inspire hope in people and believe that the system was legitimate, or was it in order to, have ostracized these people, having a major figure that they can lambast in the media or whatnot? There's different reasons why I think Ron Paul might have been allowed to have been stay at his office all those years, or maybe that when it comes to that one seat, they couldn't quell the energy of the people. But Ron Paul definitely, to me, was last like congressman that stood for anything. It seems like in America, in the United States now, we just have all these Bernie Sanders, who is pro-Israel, and for what it seemed to be pro agitating Iran. Which seems like a brilliant idea. Let's just let's just start a pissing contest with Iran, which you say that how scary Iran is, and that they apparently are might have nuclear weapons or whatnot, or so close to building nuclear weapons. But you want to start a war with Iran? See, that breaks their own logic, is that they try to make it seem like they're going to keep us safe by starting a war with a country that supposedly has nuclear weapons, but they know they don't have nuclear weapons. They just want to bomb the crap out of it, take the oil, and put a Rothschild bank. That's the reality of it.
point and no return, and nobody can stop it. Malcolm Little when he knelt before Elijah Muhammad, the comet that killed the dinosaurs, changing the earth. They love to criticize, they always say I changed for the worse. Like prescription pills when you misusing them, nigga. The Templar Knights when they took Jerusalem, nigga, and figured out what was buried under Solomon's temple, Al-Aqsa. The name is not coincidental. I know too much, the government is trying to murder me. No coming back like cutting your wrists open vertically. How could the serpent be purposely put in charge of the country? Genetic engineered sickness spread amongst me. My people are so hungry that they attack without reason, like a fucking dog ripping off the hand that feeds him. Immortal technique is treason to the Patriot Act. So come and get me, motherfucker, cause I'm not coming back. This is the point from which I can never return. And if I back down